My name is Sanchita Pal, and I will be moderating this session. Jill Matson is here with us for tech support. Please note the presentation slide and the recording of this session will be available to everyone on the main Now conference website after the conclusion of this conference. And now a few housekeeping rules. In today's session, you will be muted. Please add your questions in the chat box. I will be collecting questions and moderating the Q&A at the end of the session. You can also message me directly if you would like to keep your question anonymous. And lastly, closed captioning is available for this session. Please click the CC box at the bottom of the screen for subtitles. And with that, please join me in welcoming our presenters, Iberia Zafira, Tina Harrod, Emma Ringer, and Paola Alonso.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here. We're so excited for you to join us on this journey to learn about what our team, Prospect Development or PD, did for community care in challenging times. So whether you're new to wellness or you've been involved in wellness for a long time, this presentation is for you. We hope that everyone can walk away with tools they can use, whether in an office or not, for their well-being and community health. A toolkit will be provided at the end, so no need to take notes. So now I'm going to pass this on to my colleague, Tina, to talk more about our team. And thank you again for being here.
Hello, my name is Tina Harrod. Work is an integral part of our lives, and we believe that it should be a place for us to thrive. Our focus here is to create a supportive space for everyone. That's what we've tried to do in our team at Berkeley. What we have learned during this pandemic is that we have to stay agile as our experiences have changed, and we have found something that we like to call our special sauce, and we're continuing to evolve in our new reality. So we invite you to explore our evolution and what it means to be well, mind, body, and beyond. This presentation will be interactive. There will be breakout rooms and an opportunity to share. There will be a linked toolkit for people to use and modify as you will. And we really want to stress that everything is optional. We don't want you to feel pressured to participate if you don't want to, but we invite you to do that. And we hope that, it's something that has some meaning for you. I just want to also reiterate something that my colleague Iberia said. We acknowledge that we work in an office, but not everyone does. And so, you know, we present this with that acknowledgement, and we hope that it will be useful to people regardless of their circumstances. And now I'll pass this on to my colleague, Emma.
Hey everyone, my name is Emma. I am a senior prospect analyst in prospect development, and I have been in this role at Cal for over 6 years now. Prior to Cal, I did the same line of work at both Chico State and the Gladstone Institute. I wanted to include this little picture of my family. This is my husband, Brett, and we've been married for 7 years now, and our daughter, Fallon, just turned 4. We live in the very northern part of Sonoma County, and we love to hike. There are an endless number of trails here, but sometimes we like to venture out of our county. And this top picture is from Land's End in San Francisco. It's a really beautiful hike if you haven't done it. We also love going to the beach or any type of water area, and the bottom picture is from down south. Today, we are going to tell you about the initiatives of our team, which we call the Healthy Team. I'm incredibly passionate about health, physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. So joining the Healthy Team was a perfect fit for me. Now my colleague Paola is going to tell you a little bit about herself.
Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you everyone for being here today. I'm Paola, and I've been working in prospect development at UDAR for a little over 2 years and at Cal for almost 4 years. And I wanted to share a little bit about myself through some photos. So I love to travel every chance that I get. As you can see, the photo on the top left is of me and my partner Malik at Zion National Park doing this hike called Angel's Landing. And some other things I enjoy are taking walks around my neighborhood in San Mateo and just enjoying the nature around me. And I also am an amateur gardener. So you can also see a photo of my little herb garden in our balcony. So my health and well-being are definitely a priority for me, and I make it a point to do what I have to do every day to ensure that I'm feeling healthy. So I joined my team's healthy team as a way to support my own health and well-being, and also that of my teammates, especially during the past 14 months, which have been super challenging for a lot of us. So I really look forward to sharing more about what we do and learning from you all during this session. And next up, Tina will introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Tina Herod, and I've worked at Cal since 2017. I've worked at UC for quite a long time, and you know, my motivation for joining this team was really to explore what it means to be healthy, you know, mind, body, and as I said before, beyond. I am coming into the latter part of my career here, and it's become really important to me that things are in balance. I do not want to go into the last part, you know, feeling as though, you know, I don't have a handle on things. So that was my motivation for joining. These are some of the things that really excite me. You know, I mean, it sounds crazy, but I had never been to Coit Tower. So that's a picture of me just exploring the great outdoors. I love to walk and hike, and these are some of the pictures that I've taken on those travels. You know, the sun, I like to bird, and I am an amateur gardener as well. And so these are things that I am nurturing and growing every single day. And now I'll pass it on to my colleague, Iberia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Iberia, also a senior prospect analyst in prospect development. I've been at Cal for 5 years now and was previously at Stanford. I'm really interested in Star Wars, the new movies, not the old ones. I love lifting weights. Over in the upper right-hand corner, you can see me lifting 110-pound stone. And I'm into travel, going to the Philippines and adventurous hikes like Half Dome.
I'll go ahead and I'll pass this on to Emma, and she'll tell you a little bit more about our team.
All right, everyone. So what is the Healthy Team? So this Healthy Team was created by a fabulous colleague of ours, Colby Halligan, who is now a development officer for student experience and diversity in UDAR. But back in 2019, she was with our team on prospect development, and she had this idea to put a little team together that could focus on the health and well-being of our department, both physically and mentally. From the start, we knew that we wanted this team to be a space that could provide resources to people who wanted to use them. We didn't want to force anything on anyone at all. Everything we do is completely optional with no pressure. It's really meant to just provide a resource for people that want it. Some may not want to ever use it, and that's perfectly fine. Others may want to use it sometimes, but not all the time, and that is great too. So the 4 of us meet about once a month to check in about our current ideas and try to brainstorm new ideas for our team too. We are going to talk a little bit more about what we do specifically in this presentation and how our focus had to shift dramatically over the pandemic, once the pandemic hit. I also want to point out that we are grateful because our team and initiatives are supported by our department's management, and we feel this contributes to our overall success. I also want to briefly tell you about our prospect development team in general. There are 17 of us, and I would say we are a pretty close-knit group. We are an incredibly diverse team, and our personalities are all over the map, but we all fit really nicely together. I noticed this from the start when I met the team over 6 years ago, and it was one of the reasons that I wanted to get this position so badly. And I'm happy to say that our connectedness has continued in the time I have been here. I know one of the concerns we had when the pandemic first hit was making sure we could maintain the magic that our team has. So this has become one of the Healthy Teams initiatives as well. So before we get into more detail, Tina is going to lead a little check-in for everyone.
One of the things that we do in our staff meetings is ask folks how we're doing. We go ahead and we share how we're doing, we share our successes, and that's what we're doing here. It's a part of checking in and connecting and staying emotionally healthy, because we think that acknowledging how you are and being in the space that you are is integral to maintaining emotional health. And so right now we're going to share a link in the chat box, and you can go ahead and just answer that question. How are you? Again, everything is optional and you can participate as you wish. Okay, we want to show you how we feel right now. We asked the question, how are you? And this is where we are. A lot of us are feeling tired. Some of us are feeling busy. Some of us feel pretty. We can see there's exhaustion here. Some of us are great. Some of us are super. It just goes to show you that there is a variety of responses and all of it is healthy. And there we go.
Thanks, Tina. I think I don't think the screen is sharing at the moment. So
Okay. Let me go ahead and share it again.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
And thank you all for filling out the survey.
And a few of them also like put it in the chat that they are feeling great. Most of them are feeling good. The weather is nice today, so they're doing well. So some people also shared in the chat.
Yes. And there we go. Can you see it now? Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now we'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Iberia.
Thanks so much, Tina. So now we're going to take a quick journey into pre-pandemic times for prospect development to share some insights and actions that we took before the pandemic. So we started off by being grounded in our values: affirmation and intention, closeness beyond physical space, connection, inclusion, and reflection. These values laid the foundation for a desire to think beyond ourselves and about the community, not just in the context of doing work, but the multi-dimensionality of each person with unique strengths. So even before the pandemic began, in the US, we had a rate of depression at 7% in 2019. And according to an HR Cloud survey, 75% of people were disengaged at work. Those are staggering numbers and really spoke to the need for us to do this kind of work even before the pandemic. So even before COVID, we were struggling with these different issues. And going back to our values empowered us to create a system of social support to promote team wellness and productivity. So with so many things vying for our attention in life at work, it can be really easy to dismiss some of these actions and activities as extra. But we can't emphasize enough that playing the long-term game of investing in our wellness ultimately leads to more cohesion and better outcomes for everyone. So from here, we'll share more detail the specific actions we took pre-pandemic, and we encourage you to think about the ways you may be able to promote connection and wellness in your team. And now on to my colleague, Emma, to share more details.
Thanks, Iberia. Okay, so the very first thing we worked on as a team was working on our Healthy Department certification through University Health Services. This is a program that any department can work on, and we included a link in our toolkit. We felt like this was a great introductory activity for our team because it helped us fully look at our overall health and well-being of our department, what areas we excel in, and what areas we can improve upon. If your department hasn't done this yet, I definitely encourage you to try it out. Once that was complete, our next initiative was to create a meditative space. So right before the pandemic happened, we came up with a plan to turn one of our meeting rooms into a meditative space. Before the pandemic, we felt pretty connected as a team, and we wanted to make sure that people had the opportunity to get some alone time to regroup if needed. Our goal was to work with our managers to turn one of our office spaces into a meditative space that people could go to when they needed to meditate, do a little yoga, breathing exercises, etc. We were in the middle of this process when we went into lockdown. So then we had to shift our focus. People now had plenty of alone time, and we needed to work on staying connected, which we will discuss a little later.
Okay, the next thing we're going to do is to go into a breakout room. We're going to put some questions in the chat box, and we'd like you to explore them with the people who choose to participate. How did you prioritize wellness pre-pandemic? So we're going to go ahead and put you in those breakout rooms now, and then we'll come back together in about 5 minutes. Oh, one more thing, these rooms are not moderated, so please feel free to, speak freely and share as you go.
And I think for anyone who hasn't received an invitation to join a breakout room, it should happen shortly, hopefully.
Somebody is asking about the toolkit. Will you guys be providing the toolkit later?
Yes, we'll be sharing a link to the toolkit at the end of the presentation. Thanks for asking.
Okay.
Hey, Tina, can you just go to the last slide real quickly?
This one?
Yeah, so I talked about, no, the last one.
I'm sorry.
The one right before the breakout room.
Okay. This one.
So I talked about Healthy Department certification, and then we were going to talk about cross-office talk, creating a space for people to be authentic and team lunches. So do we want to just skip that part now, or do we want to go back to it?
Let's go ahead and skip that, because I thought that what we were doing that it was just supposed to be an overview, because we're all talking about those things in later slides.
No, we're not talking about, because once we move to later slides, we're talking about post-pandemic stuff.
Oh,
So, I mean, correct me
okay.
if I'm wrong, but Paola, weren't you going to say something? Paola and Iberia?
Yeah, I think we had some examples, but I'm fine with moving on, whatever flows
Okay.
better.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess let's just move on.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No worries.
Maybe we can just, when we come back, we can say, you know, what did you say? And then we can talk about the things that other people, you know, that we did. I'm sorry.
It's up to Paola and Iberia. It's up to you if you want to say whatever you think flows better.
Yeah, Tina, why don't we stay on slide 11 for a little bit? So how did you prioritize wellness pre-pandemic? We can ask people to, you know, share ideas in the chat box, and then we can share what we did.
Okay. Sounds good.
Should I be reading the reflections, or will you guys like?
Yes, please read them.
Okay, sure. Sure.
How much time do we have before we come back?
About 1 more minute. So it looks like some people are coming back. So if anyone would like to share anything that you talked about in the chat box, that would be great. Yeah, feel free to share.
Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's well. So we were just sharing, like Mary was the last person I spoke with, and she was just sharing how we were talking about how I was telling them that I had just started like last year during the pandemic, well, prior pandemic, I had started taking swimming classes. And so it just stopped. And I was telling them I feel like a fish out of water. And so she was just sharing how she, being at home remote, how she breaks it up to make, because I miss being on campus. I miss the interaction. I miss the norm, right? So you have to figure out how to do it differently. So I appreciated her sharing what she does at home to like break it up. And I'm gonna try and adopt what she does, because she says she'll get up, she gets her coffee, and then she'll go take like a walk around the block to make it feel like she left and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was I just appreciate her sharing that, and it's something that I'm gonna try. I think it'll help too.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing with us. Yeah, I think that that's a really good tip that we can all probably implement in our days.
Thank you.
Sanchita, are there
Paola,
any?
yeah. Yes, there's another one. It says, my chat partner did work fit and took walks with colleagues at lunchtime. I took language classes on campus.
Mhm.
So
That's
like
amazing.
somebody,
Yeah.
work fit and language class. Language class seems pretty interesting.
Yeah, I know through UC Extension, we have so many opportunities to continue our learning. So that's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only one I have so far in the chat box.
Okay, well, it looks like most people are back. I don't know if Iberia is still here or if she maybe got kicked out, but we were, oh, okay. Sorry, I don't see your video, but we were going to share some examples of how our team prioritized wellness before the pandemic. So when we were still in the office. And Iberia, if you would like to go first.
Yes, so I guess pre-pandemic, we, like many of you had mentioned, created cross-office talk with opportunities to share around food and fun activities. So pre-pandemic, we had like dedicated tables for snacks and fun, like puzzles. I remember someone brought in this Grand Canyon puzzle, and it wasn't, you know, like a landscape kind of view you might be thinking about. It was really just a section of a wall that was reds and oranges. And I remember thinking, how are we ever going to solve this puzzle? But I learned that some people are good at different things. Like people are good at finding the edges, other people are good at matching colors, and other people are good at finding the pieces that fell on the floor. And I think that puzzles is a really good metaphor for how our team works, because everyone contributes different perspective to solving problems. And now I'll pass to Paola for sharing pre-pandemic activities.
Thanks, Iberia. Yeah, so I also wanted to acknowledge that even before the pandemic, our team had created an environment where I think all of us felt like we could be authentic, and not just people on our team, but also other teams, since we get to work with various units across campus. And yeah, this becomes very clear in our staff meetings. So it's very common to hear from various voices and perspectives at all our staff meetings and on any given topic. So it can be work related, but also things like movies and music. And I also just wanted to share that our supervisors and teammates are, and even, you know, were very supportive of our individual interests and celebrate our accomplishments. And so we have a practice of sharing success stories at the beginning of all our staff meetings. And it's common for us to shout each other out during that time. So like I said before, it can be work related, but also about a personal accomplishment, such as running a half marathon or something like that. The team has built such an inclusive culture that's really allowed me to feel like I can be myself and pursue my interests outside of the team and my work. From day one, PD made me feel welcomed and encouraged me to get involved in areas outside of campus. So when I first started, one of my PD colleagues, Vlad, reached out to welcome me, and he actually invited me to join a staff organization that he was a part of. And that organization was Alianza, which is UC Berkeley's Chicanx Latinx staff organization. And soon after that, I attended my first Alianza meeting with Vlad. And pretty much right away, Alianza became such an important space for me to feel emotionally and psychologically safe. And I think just connecting with people who had similar backgrounds as me made me feel more connected with campus as a whole. And it supported my advancement at Cal throughout these past 4 years. So I would really, really encourage all of you to get involved with a staff organization if you aren't already involved. And yeah, I know that for me, it's done huge things, especially in the past year. So next, Tina will share a little bit more about how we've used team lunches to bond.
Well, it's the most basic of things. Breaking bread together is what people have done from time immemorial to come together, and we are no exception. So pre-pandemic, we routinely had lunches that people could just sort of drop into. It would be on the calendar, and we would find a place and we would go and we would sit and we would connect outside of the office setting. Now we're doing things a little differently because obviously we're not all together. What we do though, we're having virtual lunches where people can just sort of drop in and have lunch together. We can talk together. We can have the camera on and off, and on or off as we desire, and we can maintain connection that way. So it's something that didn't have to end with the relocation to our homes, and it's something that we've been able to maintain even though it's now virtual. And now I will pass this on to my colleague Iberia.
Thanks, Tina. That's a good segue. So earlier we discussed our values framework and how our existing structures of community care provided support. And now we'll transition to how our department PD, or prospect development, adapted to providing community care during the pandemic. So when the pandemic started, we were all faced with feelings of fear, anxiety, and loss of control over different parts of our lives. It was very chaotic and scary, but our values helped buffer this and set the foundation for a strong team with a system of social support. We reflected on the question, what is within our capacity to do, and created bold visions for what our team could look like in this new reality. So we'll share in more detail the specific steps we took during the pandemic. And we want you to know that each activity we took started with a small, simple idea. Each idea was small, but critical in changing the way that we connected and collaborated. And we had a special sauce of humor that made it really fun. So we fundamentally learned that providing the right resources at the right time makes a major difference in one's quality of life and quality of work. And we encourage you to lean into your personal and collective power. A small group of people can make a difference. And now we'll share the steps that we took and hope that you'll be able to bring some back to your team.
Thanks, Iberia. So the first thing we're going to talk about is alt meetings. So we typically have staff meetings every other Wednesday. When we first all went into lockdown, we talked as a team about if we should make these every Wednesday to help us all check in with each other more. Then our director, Terrence, came up with the idea of creating what we call alternative meetings, or alt meetings for short. These occur every other Wednesday on the weeks that we don't have a staff meeting, and anyone can choose to take over an alt meeting. One of the times we had a woman come and lead a really wonderful meditation for our whole group. Another time, our colleague Abby won a Zoom cooking class, and she used this time to invite everybody to join her, and it was a lot of fun. These alt meetings are optional, and sometimes no one grabs one and then we just cancel them, but they're always there for anyone that wants to use them, and we know that the team generally has the time blocked off on their calendar. We also use them for celebrating birthdays, baby showers, and retirements. Our team has always been really into celebrations, and we didn't want that to fade while in lockdown. So we've continued to do these things virtually, and we had to get creative with our virtual games and our virtual guests. So we played virtual bingo, The Price is Right, Name That Tune, as a few examples, and we also have links to these in the toolkit. We also implemented virtual birthday cards this last year. About a week before someone's birthday, the Healthy team sends out a virtual card for the rest of the team to sign, and then we email it to them on their birthday. This is such a simple, easy thing to do, but it really does mean a lot to the recipients, and it lets them know that the team is thinking about them on their day. So this next slide is a picture of our team at the time. And this picture makes me laugh because you can see our colleague Bob was not there at the time, and someone nicely photoshopped him in. But what's funny is that I was not there at the time either, and no one remembered to Photoshop me in, and I'm slightly bitter about it. I gave the team a really hard time about it when I got back, but that's part of why I love our team. Everyone has a great sense of humor, and no one takes themselves too seriously. And one day I do plan to Photoshop myself into that picture and make it the permanent picture in our files. And now Tina is going to talk about Slack and Paloozas.
We had a water cooler when we were in the office, you know. We could talk about anything, and our space was just one wide open room. I will confess For myself personally, I didn't often get to the other side of the room. And that's something that I plan on rectifying, when we get back to the office. But what we have done is create the virtual water cooler. And what it has done for me personally is give me an opportunity to interact with everyone, not just people who sit across from me or right in front of me, but everybody on the team. And so what we've done is use Slack, and the people who have really spearheaded this for us have been our colleagues Mallory and Susie. They have moderated this forum. They've set up guidelines, basics on using Slack, the etiquette that we use, the channel guidelines. We thread conversations, and we provide content warnings for sensitive topics. We also make sure conversations happen in the appropriate channels. One of our channels was work from home, which is not listed here in the slide, but it's work from home. And when we first were sent home, we all had to physically adapt our spaces. And so that was a channel that we used to have a very robust discussion about the tools that worked best for us. The crowdsourcing was instrumental in helping us to find ergonomic options. You can see some of the other channels. We have even more than this, but we just provided a sample for you all. We're very food oriented. As I said before, breaking bread is a big part of our special sauce. So we created a channel for all things food. People share recipes. We have colleagues who've just gone out cherry picking, and they've shown us the fruit of their labor. We also discussed some work-related topics. You'll see here, Ask an Expert in Analytics, prospect management, and then the things that really do enrich us: books, TVs, movies, music, and then professional development. We also have another work-related activity, and we call it Prospect Palooza. Now, it started with our colleague, Mallory. It was intentionally intended as translating the idea of a hackathon to our work. And it turned into wanting to get together and to do work collectively. So once the pandemic hit, it became just a shorthand for just come together to work. So what we do virtually is we calendar it, and we set up a time for people to just come and work. Camera on, camera off. We're just working collectively on whatever it is we're doing. And with that, I'll pass it on to Paola.
Thanks, Tina. So when we switched to working remotely full-time, making sure we each had time to refresh became extremely important for the team, since it was really difficult to create boundaries when everything, work, entertainment, family, basically our entire lives were at home. And so one way our team, tried to help was by encouraging time to refresh and encouraging restorative actions. And so I'm going to share a couple of examples from myself and some of my teammates, starting with ways in which we've actually used our calendars to encourage self-care. So many of us started using our calendars a lot more intentionally when we started working from home to block off time to do things like eat lunch, take a walk, or have a stretch break. And this may sound a little strange, but some of us, including myself, and I feel like a lot of you will also relate to this, we're really not taking those breaks that we need to feel healthy and energized throughout the day. So this simple change made a huge difference. We've also normalized blocking off times on our calendars when we would prefer not to have an additional meeting, if we're feeling zoomed out or for whatever other reason. And also phone check-ins became a lot more common for us. And then finally, the last thing on calendars is that our team decided to start scheduling 50-minute meetings instead of an hour-long meetings to give people a few minutes to transition between back-to-back meetings. So especially at the beginning of starting to work full-time remotely, we saw that a lot of us were just getting so exhausted because we had to go from meeting to meeting. So having these extra 10 minutes was very helpful. I know that for me, it was helpful for my mental health, and having these 50-minute meetings now, I show up to meetings more calm and focused, and oftentimes the meetings are even more productive. So outside of using the calendar, some other things that I have done that have been good for me are staying physically active. So as I mentioned before, I love to explore the outdoors. So I try to find new running routes around my neighborhood and new hikes. And I really appreciate just having a team who is supportive and encouraging of that and who values our well-being. So next, Iberia will talk about our team's PD Pals program, which I love.
Thanks, Paola. So the PD Pals program really was created to provide small group informal opportunities to connect in our virtual environment. So kind of similar to how people were advised to stay within our pods, we thought, why don't we create virtual pods within our team? And again, this was completely optional. So we asked people to sign up if they wanted to be a part of a pod, which is a small group of 3 to 4 people, to connect quarterly. And we would rotate these groups quarterly, provide some prompting questions for discussion, but more often than not, the conversation flowed pretty organically. And I remember one conversation in my pod, I lamented the fact that I had been crashing with a friend and unfortunately killed all the plants for my friend. And I was really frustrated because I feel like most people are coming out of this pandemic as like a master baker or gardener, and I just killed everything. But I had a lot of encouragement from my colleague, Will, who said to not give up on my green thumb. So that's just one example of how fun our PD pods can be, which ultimately encourage openness and connection that we don't have in our physical environment at the moment. So these are some examples that we've implemented during the pandemic, and we hope that you'll be able to take some of these back to your space. And now we're going to transition, and I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Terrence Kisak, who is the Director of Prospect Development, or PD. Terrence has worked at Cal for 14 years, and prior to Cal, Terrence worked with several small nonprofits, including the GLBT Historical Society and the Prison University Project, now Mount Tamalpais College. In his spare time, Terrence enjoys hiking, napping, and observing birds. Thanks for being here, Terrence.
Thanks, Iberia. Let me see. Hi, everybody. I want to thank Emma, Iberia, Paola, and Tina for asking me to participate today. I'm going to share 2 quick comments regarding my experience of this past year, and it relates to the work of the Healthy Team. And my first comment is about my role as a manager and colleague, and my second comment is about my personal experience. But first, a quick note on the photos you see on the slide. The nails are mine. I painted them in honor of World Goth Day, which was on May 22nd. We've really had to figure out ways to amuse ourselves over this last year. And in the other photo, you can see a little cactus that's thriving amidst rocks in the desert. And that's a photo I took on a hike. When we left the office in early 2020, I was not feeling as tough as that little cactus. I was very worried. It is true that a number of us on our team in prospect development already worked remotely, one of us full-time, but this felt different. I didn't know if we would navigate this abrupt change and difficulties we might each face. But luckily, we maintained business continuity and stayed in connection and community. And I have to say, it wasn't all luck. It was a lot of work, and no small part of that work was done by the Prospect Development Healthy Team through the tools that they've already discussed, which is like setting up the PD pods, which are small groups of friends, or supporting, continuing the birthday celebrations. I have to say my personal experience over the last year has been a little bit more mixed. On the one hand, my partner, Mark, and I have adapted well to working from home. In fact, I intend on continuing to work remotely for the most part. Unfortunately, however, I did struggle in 2020. Last fall, one of my best friends, Mario Aranda, died from COVID. The pain of this loss was compounded by the fact that I couldn't really comfort Mario's husband, and I couldn't gather with Mario's friends and family. I felt isolated, and it was difficult to grieve. but I felt safe sharing my experience with my colleagues at work. And when I did, they were very supportive. Again, I have to credit the work of Prospect Development's Healthy Team for sustaining a caring community that had my back when I really needed help. And I really, really appreciate everything that Emma, Iberia, and Paola Tina have done for all of us this past year, and expect that much of what they've innovated will continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terrence. Well, we have another speaker who I'm excited to introduce. Will Rower has worked for Prospect Development since 2017 as a senior prospect analyst. Passions beyond prospect research and management include backpacking, ice hockey, gardening, and agitating for a better world. He and his wife, Kim, live in Berkeley with their 2 kids, Margie, who's 4, and Wes, who's 1, and was born in April of last year. I'll pass it on to you, Will.
Thanks, Paola. Thanks for having me here to talk about community care and my experience over the last year. I'm so grateful that the Healthy Team is focused on community care this year, because it's so important during COVID. COVID has really laid bare to me the fundamental inequalities of our society in a way that I feel is often papered over, and which is often not felt by those who are materially secure and comfortable. And not only the impacts of COVID, which have been so grotesquely unequal, but also the inequality that existed before that. And in the absence of an adequate social safety net, this community care becomes even more important. While you're organizing to fix or improve upon these broken structures and systems, you also need to mitigate the symptoms right then and right there and now. So that's why I personally have supported mutual aid networks, tenants protection, food banks, and that's why for me personally, having the Healthy Team proactively set up these programs like the PALs was so helpful for my mental health and well-being, and I know to others on the team, maintaining our community virtually. Personally, we started doing a CSA, a community supported agriculture, which is basically a weekly box of fruits and veggies directly from a farm. And I think the reason I gravitated towards this is this sense of community, getting food directly from the community. It's a weekly ritual I really look forward to, taking my kids in a wagon around the block to pick up our boxes, getting outside, seeing neighbors, walking around. Last night, my daughter had an absolute meltdown, but it was worth it, nevertheless. Also been doing a lot of gardening, working on my flowers on my porch and seeing people walk by on College Avenue, going to Berkeley Hort to pick up starters for my veggie garden. It's the same idea. But for me, this kind of intersection of the personal and the political, we felt this most prominently around our kids and childcare. The US is the only economically advanced country in the world that doesn't have paid federal parental leave. My wife was laid off from her job a few weeks after Wes was born last year. You might hear him in the background. And that's actually legal. But one irony of COVID is that I had, in essence, 3 months of paid parental leave because Wes's birth lined up with Margie's preschool closure. And that's contrasted with when Margie was born in 2016, I took 2 weeks off, one using vacation and one unpaid. And community is just so important in raising kids. We're not meant to raise them in isolation. It's awful for the parents and the kids. And I'm guessing this was by design, but my first PAL pod was with Emma and our colleague Brenda, who all of us whom have young kids. And it was so soothing and comforting to be able to talk shop with them, so to speak, about the kids. My family made the call during the pandemic when I started working again to schlep up to my parents' house in Olympia, Washington. They're newly retired, and they handled the bulk of the childcare work while I worked and while my wife started working on a startup. So we lived with them for 6 months, not without challenges, but it was great. And while we were taking these steps to sort of mitigate our immediate challenges, just within the last few months, Berkeley granted, for the first time, paid parental leave for parental leave for staffers, thanks to a group of staff who push for it. And I'm just so grateful to them that parents going forward are going to have that and be able to enjoy that benefit. So, thanks to the team for having me here and let me chat about the last year for me.
Thank you, Will. So I'll go ahead and introduce the next breakout room. So you have another opportunity to get together in a small group and chat about these 2 questions. So what are you or your team doing now around wellness? What is your special sauce? And we'll put these in the chat too. So yep, we'll see you in a little bit. Hi, Yvette. I see your photo.
Is this another group that we're in, or?
I think we're back to the full thing. Thank you. So Tina will be kind of like closing this activity out in the next slide. Thanks.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I wanted to share something with you, all the presenters. Like Yuka said, they had a virtual lab party with this company twice, and both were very successful. It's called teambuilding.com, and they used a lab lunch once a week, and that was very important. So during pandemic, they tried to connect outside of work occasionally.
That's so cool. Yeah, we'll have to check it out. Thank you for sharing.
Do you have any comments or anything they want to share?
I think many actually liked, like I said, the plant was very helpful. It was very therapeutic to them, taking care of the plants. Like gardening was very helpful to a lot of people. It was for mental health and air filtering. So I think a lot of comments on plants.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. Well, what we've tried to do, pre and post pandemic, is to what we call stay frosty. It's basically how do we keep our cool in a time when things seem to be, sort of spinning out of control at times. And really, it is about what we say here, affirmation and intention. In 2019, we were initially looking at a certification from the campus on, what creates a healthy environment. And so that was the motivation, but it really did morph into how to create connection on the team. And so we set out a plan, and then we've been working steadily to try and put that into play. What we have really focused on is how to create closeness beyond physical space, because we're not in the same places anymore. And so all of these activities, all of these affirmations have been with that in mind. And the result has been a connection and inclusion and reflection on what we're doing and how to stay healthy. And with that, I will pass it on to Paola, and she will introduce the Wellness Toolkit.
Thank you, Tina. So as we mentioned earlier, we've put together a toolkit with all the resources that we talked about in this session. You all can access it by going to this link, and I think it should be in the chat box shortly. So we are excited for you to check it out, and hopefully you'll take away an idea or two that you can help implement in your own life or within your team. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Emma, who will lead a closing activity for us.
Hi, all. I know we're a little bit pressed for time. I don't want to keep anyone past the time, so I'm going to do this a little bit quicker than we, at first imagined. But basically, I just want to talk a little bit about gratitude. It's something our team really believes in, and it's something I really believe in personally. I had read something that said that science tells us that the brain cannot actually be both anxious and grateful at the same time. It's actually impossible. This is huge for me because anxiety is something I struggle with. And so I have really practiced every day writing out things that I am grateful for. So I thought it would be fun if we just grabbed a pen and paper, or you could just type this out on your computer. And we're going to list 2 to 3 items that you're grateful for in each category. So I'm just going to run through these categories kind of quickly. And you can do this any way that you want to, but sometimes it's helpful to do it in categories. It just helps kind of organize a little bit more in your brain. So the first one is people. Examples of this would be a family member, a friend or a mentor, your children. It could be someone you've never even met, like the author of a book that really changed you, or maybe a comedian on TV that always makes you laugh, something like that. So go ahead and write out 2 to 3 things that you're grateful for under the category of people. And I'm kind of gonna, again, for time, I'm just gonna run through these, but it's something you can finish out later today if you want. The second category is experiences. Examples of this would be like an international trip you took a few years ago that really changed your perspective, or the day trip to the beach last week, the hike you went on this morning, the yoga class you took last night, any type of experience you've had. And then the other category is going to be things that you have. Examples, I mean, it could be really small things, something like a really cozy blanket, or your favorite coffee mug, or a good book, or a journal that you write in. So things that you have, list out 2 to 3 items that you're grateful for. And then the last category is going to be personal qualities. Examples of this might be like a talent you have, your ability to sing or to draw, or your kindness or your empathy for people, or your bravery. Maybe there's a situation recently where you had to be really brave about something. This one can be challenging for some people. Sometimes we are our biggest critic, right? But it's important to recognize their strong qualities and be grateful for those and recognize those. So if anyone wants to throw any into the chat, feel free to do that. If not, you can just finish out that activity today. It's something that I really encourage you. You could do it as a team, like for an alt meeting or any type of other forum, or you could just do it for yourself each day, and you can kind of see how your list grows and changes over time. And then also, we only have about a minute left. So if you have any questions or final remarks, also throw that into the chat. And then I'm going to have Tina wrap this up for us.
Hi, Emma. There's one question. It's like how to connect on a fun and lighthearted way when people have different personalities in a group. Like, you know, especially now, again, also we are going in a hybrid. It's like if starting June and July, a lot of people may go back to campus. And so I think that's the question, like when some people are in the campus and how to connect them. Some are working from home, and also some cases like people have different personalities. So how do you like?
So maybe I can share, and I think everyone on the healthy team would agree with this, but we all know that going back into the office is going to look different for different people. And some people will continue to be remote full time. Some people will be hybrid, sometimes in the office, sometimes remote. And some people might be in the office full time. And so all these, activities that we talked about today, I think can still continue to be done in this remote environment, and people who are working in the office, who are hybrid or who are full-time remote can still participate. And I think we look forward to continuing kind of like everything that we talked about in the future after, the pandemic is behind us. And then did anyone want to answer the question about different personalities?
Yeah, that was one of the questions too.
I'll go ahead and ask.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and answer that. We are a very diverse team. We have people, and it is an incredibly, it's a diverse team. People have very different life experiences, and we come at it in different ways. And I think that the biggest thing that helps us is that we make it clear that we're not forcing people into anything, and we give people different ways to participate. For the introverts, people can come to different events and keep their cameras off if they want. Nobody's forced to speak up if they don't want to, and it really is just about understanding that everybody is different, and what we don't want to do is enforce any type of group think. So I will just say personally, I have different views on some issues than some of my colleagues. But what we do is we set out ground rules on how we treat people respectfully in our Slack channel. Some of the etiquette that we've talked about, where we say, if you're going to talk about something sensitive, this is the way you frame it, that sort of thing. The idea is really just to make sure that we respond to people with respect and understand that, we're not all one group blob. So I'll leave it at that. And I'm just going to close us out. And I want to thank everybody for coming. We really thank you for your time. We've put our email addresses up here. If you have any questions, any comments, anything you want to talk about, we are all happy to, respond and answer anything that you might have, that you might need answered. So thank you again. We really appreciate you coming to this presentation.
Thank you, Iberia, Tina, Emma, and Paola, for such an engaging presentation, and also for sharing us how we can create an inclusive community-based spaces for people to interact. Everyone, please remember to complete the session evaluation. Link has been posted in the chat, and the QR code is on the screen. Up next, we have a 1-hour lunch break. If you're interested in participating in a networking activity, there are 2 time slots available for you, 12:50 to 1:15 p.m. and 1:15 to 1:40 p.m. You can find the Zoom links on the venue website. Please note that the registration is not required for networking. If you're interested, feel free to pop in and network with some of your UC colleagues. After lunch, we will reconvene at 1:45 in our main webinar room for an optional adult recess stretch break. Our third and final round of breakout session will start at 2, and the Zoom links for all the sessions are on the program website. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye, everyone.